Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. In the previous lecture, we had started with the topic of synapse and synaptic transmission. In the previous lecture, we talked about the types of synapses and the structure of the chemical and the electrical synapse, and we also talked about the transmission of the nerve impulse across the synapse. In today's lecture, we are going to study the characteristics of synaptic transmission, and we are going to see the effects of different factors on synaptic transmission. So, we are going to start with the topic, the properties of chemical synapses. The first property that we are going to study is the Dale's law. Now, according to the Dale's law, only one type of neurotransmitter is released from a presynaptic terminal, and this neurotransmitter may be excitatory or inhibitory. It means that for each synapse, the neurotransmitter is fixed. There is only one type of neurotransmitter which is being released from the neurotransmitter vesicles present in the presynaptic terminal, and this neurotransmitter can either act as excitatory or inhibitory neurotransmitter. Again, the action of the neurotransmitter, that is whether it is going to act as excitatory neurotransmitter or the inhibitory neurotransmitter, is fixed. So this is known as Dale's law. So again, I am repeating it, that at each synapse within the nervous system, there is only one type of neurotransmitter which is released from the presynaptic terminal of a synapse, and this neurotransmitter may act as excitatory or the inhibitory neurotransmitter. The second property which is possessed by the chemical synapses is one-way conduction. We have discussed this property of chemical synapses in the previous lecture too, that in case of chemical synapse, it has two components, the presynaptic component and the postsynaptic component. The impulse is transmitted from the presynaptic terminal to the postsynaptic terminal only, and impulse cannot be transmitted in the reverse direction, that is from the postsynaptic terminal to the presynaptic terminal. So this is in contrast to the electrical synapses. In electrical synapses, the ionic flow can occur between the two neurons in either direction. So the electrical synapses are bidirectional, but in case of chemical synapses, the transmission of nerve impulse occur only from the presynaptic terminal to the postsynaptic terminal. A neurotransmitter is released from the presynaptic neurons, and this neurotransmitter binds with the receptors on the postsynaptic neuron to produce a response in the postsynaptic neuron. So one-way conduction is there in case of chemical synapses. The third property or the third feature of the synaptic transmission is synaptic delay. Synaptic delay means that there is a time lapse between for the transmission of the nerve impulse from the presynaptic terminal to the postsynaptic terminal. So it is the delay, it's a lapse in the transmission of impulse from presynaptic to the postsynaptic neuron. There is a delay of about 0.5 millisecond. That is the duration of synaptic delay. It takes about 0.5 millisecond for the nerve impulse to be transmitted from the presynaptic nerve terminal to the postsynaptic nerve terminal. The synaptic delay, it occurs because of different events that occur during synaptic transmission, and these events during synaptic transmission include the release of neurotransmitter. So time is consumed in the release of neurotransmitter from the presynaptic terminal. Then this neurotransmitter has to diffuse through the synaptic cleft or the synaptic space, and after diffusing through the synaptic space, it binds with the with the receptors on the postsynaptic membrane, and then due to binding of the neurotransmitter with the postsynaptic receptors, there is opening of the ion channels, and then there is inward diffusion of sodium ions. So for all these steps to occur, a certain amount of time is consumed, which is known as synaptic delay, and the duration of synaptic delay is 0.5 millisecond for one synapse. Next is fatigue of the synaptic transmission. If there is continuous stimulation of the presynaptic neuron, there is a decline in the synaptic transmission. And due to decline in the synaptic transmission, the response in the postsynaptic neuron is also decreased. So it is said that due to repetitive stimulation, there is fatigue of the synaptic transmission. Now this fatigue of the synaptic transmission can be caused by a number of factors present at the synapse. Like the three causes have been enumerated for the fatigue of the synaptic transmission. First, it can be caused by the depletion of the neurotransmitter vesicles in the presynaptic nerve terminal. If a presynaptic neuron is repetitively stimulated due to the release of the too much neurotransmitter into the synaptic space, ultimately the neurotransmitter vesicles are going to be depleted because they cannot be rapidly replenished. So there can be depletion of the neurotransmitter vesicles on repetitive stimulation, which can be a cause for fatigue of the synaptic transmission. The second cause of the fatigue of synaptic transmission can be the progressive inactivation of the postsynaptic receptors. We have studied that the receptors are present in the postsynaptic membrane with which the neurotransmitter is going to bind. So if there is too much stimulation, too much binding of the chemicals with the receptors present on the postsynaptic membrane, they may be inactivated. So inactivation of the postsynaptic receptors can be there, and if there is inactivation of the postsynaptic receptors, there is failure of response in the postsynaptic neuron, so synaptic transmission can be fatigued. The third cause for the fatigue of synaptic transmission is development of abnormal concentration of ions across the postsynaptic membrane. So one of the three factors can contribute to the fatigue of synaptic transmission. So I am repeating again that fatigue of synaptic transmission means a decline in the synaptic transmission and a decline in the response in the postsynaptic neuron, which can be due to either number one, the depletion of the neurotransmitter vesicles, number two, it can be due to the progressive inactivation of the postsynaptic receptors, and number three, it can be due to development of abnormal concentration of ions across the postsynaptic membrane. Whatever is the exact cause of the fatigue of synaptic transmission, it is very important. Its significance is that it has a protective function. So fatigue of synaptic transmission is very important because it has a protective function. For example, in an epileptic fit, which is caused by excessive activation of different areas of the brain, this epileptic fit, it will come to an end due to fatigue of synaptic transmission. So the persons who have epilepsy, they experience epileptic fit. These are seizures, and seizures are caused by overexcitation, overactivity of the neurons in different areas of the brain, and this overactivity of the neurons in different areas of the brain causes the different type of seizures, and these seizures after some time come to an end, which is because of the fatigue of the synaptic transmission. So this is a protective phenomena. Fatigue of the synaptic transmission is a protective phenomena. Next property is convergence. Now convergence means to get together at the same place. While when we talk about the convergence in synaptic transmission, it means that the postsynaptic neuron receive afferents from a large number of neurons. Or in other ways, we can say that when many presynaptic neurons they synapse, they make connection with one postsynaptic neuron, this is known as convergence. And this phenomena of convergence is very common in the nervous system, and up to as many as 20,000 synaptic knobs have been found to make connections with one postsynaptic neurons. Now this is the diagram showing us the phenomena of convergence, and opposite to convergence is the phenomena of divergence. So first we are going to reinforce the concept of convergence, and then we will study about the divergence. So we just said that in convergence there are many presynaptic neurons, as you can see in this diagram, while there is one postsynaptic neuron. So many presynaptic nerve terminals making synapse with the one postsynaptic neuron. So the postsynaptic neuron, it receives inputs from many neurons, and the benefit of convergence is that the responses or the signals which are transmitted by many presynaptic neurons can be summated, can be added up in the postsynaptic neuron. Now opposite to this convergence is the divergence. In divergence, there is one presynaptic neuron which makes synaptic connections with many postsynaptic neurons, as you can see in this diagram. Again I am repeating, in divergence, one presynaptic neuron, it makes connections with many multiple postsynaptic neurons. So you can see this is a presynaptic neuron. It divides into many terminal branches, and terminal branches are synapsing with different postsynaptic neurons. Now the significance of divergence is that it causes amplification of the signal transmission in the neuronal pool. Now neuronal pool is what? It is the organization of the neurons in the nervous system, as you can see in this lower part of the diagram. This is the basic organization of a neuronal pool. So in the brain we talked about that the structural and the functional unit is the neuron, and these neurons in the nervous system form the neuronal pool. So in neuronal pool, amplification of signals transmission occur by divergence. That is, one excitation of one neuron will can cause excitation of many postsynaptic neurons. So signal can be amplified, and more neurons can be involved for transmission of the nerve signals. So this is divergence. One presynaptic neuron making synaptic connections with many postsynaptic neurons. Now coming to the lower part of the diagram, and as we just said that this is the organization of a neuronal pool, and in this we can see both these features, both these characteristics of synaptic transmission, that is the convergence and divergence. So this 1 and 2 labeled are the presynaptic neurons, and A, B, C, D are the 4 postsynaptic neurons. Now we will look for the convergence and divergence in these neurons given in this neuronal pool. So look at this diagram. So this is neuron 1. It is making synaptic connection with the neuron A. It is also making synaptic connection with the neuron B, and it is also making synaptic connection with the neuron C. So what is this phenomena? This is the phenomena of divergence. One neuron one presynaptic neuron making synaptic connections with three neurons A, B and C. So this is the phenomena of divergence. Now we can see the phenomena of convergence as well in this diagram. Now concentrate on this neuron C, which is labeled as C. This is the C postsynaptic neuron. Now this postsynaptic neuron, it is receiving input, it is receiving synapse from the neuron 1 and it is also receiving the synaptic connections from the neuron 2. So there is one postsynaptic neuron receiving inputs from two presynaptic neurons. So this is what is the phenomena of convergence. So both convergence and divergence is present in the neuronal pool in the nervous system. Next is summation. Summation means to add together, to add up. When we talk about the synaptic transmission, by summation we mean adding up of the effects of individual subthreshold stimuli. Again I am repeating that by summation we mean adding up of the effects of the individual subthreshold stimuli. So the responses can be added in the postsynaptic neuron, and this addition of the summing up of the responses in the postsynaptic neuron is known as summation. Now summation can be of two types. There are two types of summation. One is temporal summation. The other type of summation is the spatial summation. In temporal summation, there is the response is added up by repetitive stimulation of the same nerve fiber. So we can say that temporal summation, it results from summing up of successive discharges from a single presynaptic nerve terminal. So there is a single presynaptic nerve terminal which will repetitively discharge which will rapidly discharge, and this response or repetitive discharge of the presynaptic neuron can be added up in the postsynaptic neuron. So this type of summation is called as temporal summation. The other type is the spatial summation. Now spatial summation is the effect of summing of the simultaneous postsynaptic potentials by activating multiple presynaptic terminals on spaced areas. Again I am repeating, in spatial summation what happens is that if there is summing up of the simultaneous postsynaptic potentials which are produced due to activation of multiple presynaptic terminal on spaced areas. So there are two or more than two responses, or we can say the two or more than two stimuli from two or more than two different presynaptic elements are added up together. So this type of summation is called as spatial summation. Again I am emphasizing that in temporal summation there is only one presynaptic terminal which is repetitively stimulated and the response is being added up in the postsynaptic neuron. While in spatial summation there are two or even more than two presynaptic terminals, and the responses of the simultaneous stimulation of these two or more than two presynaptic terminals are added up in the postsynaptic neuron, and this type of summation is known as spatial summation. Now we can further elaborate the concept of spatial and temporal summation by this diagram. So this is a postsynaptic neuron and these are the presynaptic neurons. So this is an example of spatial summation. So when these three presynaptic neurons or the presynaptic terminals, they are going to discharge simultaneously. They are going to produce response in the postsynaptic neuron, and the postsynaptic neuron, all these three responses are summated. So this type of summation is spatial summation, which is due to simultaneous discharge of two or more than two presynaptic terminals onto the postsynaptic neuron. The other type that we studied was the temporal summation. Now in temporal summation, as we just discussed, that there is only one presynaptic nerve terminal. So this is one presynaptic nerve terminal, and this is the postsynaptic neuron. So there is repetitively stimulation of this presynaptic neuron or the nerve terminal, and this repeated stimulation of the presynaptic terminal, it is going to add it up in the postsynaptic neuron, and this type of summation is called as temporal summation. Now we will see the graph of the spatial and the temporal summation. So in this diagram we have three types of the responses. The first one is the excitatory postsynaptic potential, which is produced in the postsynaptic neuron by a single action potential transmitted from the presynaptic terminal, and this causes a graded response, which is EPSP, in the postsynaptic neuron. So this is the magnitude of the EPSP produced by the activation of a single presynaptic axon, and a response is produced in the postsynaptic neuron, which is excitatory postsynaptic potential, and here is the magnitude of it. Now in the second figure there is phenomena of spatial summation. There are three presynaptic nerve terminals which discharge simultaneously, means the nerve signal is transmitted through these three presynaptic nerve terminals simultaneously. By simultaneously we mean at the same time. So when at the same time they are going to discharge, they are going to produce a response in the postsynaptic membrane, and this response is going to be added up. These three responses are going to be added up, and what will be the result? The result will be that the magnitude of excitatory postsynaptic potential is going to increase because of summation. Now significance of increase in the magnitude of excitatory postsynaptic potential is that it can result in production of action potential in the postsynaptic neuron. Now this is the third neuron showing us the temporal summation. There is a single presynaptic nerve terminal, and this presynaptic terminal or the presynaptic nerve fiber, it fires action potentials in a quick succession, that is rapidly. So one action potential, after the one action potential there is a second, and then there is a third, in a quick succession rapidly, so that the responses in the postsynaptic neurons are added together. As you can see in this graph, before the effect or before the response of the first stimulation is over, the response of second stimulation or second action potential is added up to the first one, and before the response of the second action potential it is faded, it disappears or declines, the response of the third action potential is added up, the third action potential in the presynaptic terminal is added up to produce a further increase in the magnitude of the excitatory postsynaptic potential. So this is temporal summation, when the response of successive stimuli or the action potential through the same nerve fiber are added up onto the postsynaptic neuron. So this is temporal summation. While in spatial summation, there is simultaneous discharge from multiple presynaptic terminal is added up. The response of the discharges is added up in the postsynaptic neuron to produce an increased magnitude of the excitatory postsynaptic potential. So this was about the summation and its types, the temporal and the spatial summation. Now we will move on to the effects of the chemical changes in the blood. Effect of chemical changes in the blood on synaptic transmission. So in this regard, we are going to discuss the acidosis, alkalosis and hypoxia. You all must be knowing that acidosis is a fall in the pH of the blood or an increase in hydrogen ion concentration in the blood. When there is increased hydrogen ion concentration in the blood, there is suppression of the neuronal activity. The neurons are suppressed and there is a decline or a decrease in the synaptic transmission. So acidosis decreases the neuronal excitability and it also decreases the synaptic transmission. Now the underlying mechanism or the cause of this is that in acidosis there is decrease in the concentration of ionized calcium in the extracellular fluid and in the blood. Decrease in the ionized calcium. Since ionized calcium, ionic calcium is important factor in synaptic transmission. So if its concentration is decreased, this is going to result in a decreased synaptic transmission. So acidosis suppresses the neuronal activity and synaptic transmission, while alkalosis, which is an increase in the pH or a decrease in hydrogen ion concentration, it has opposite effect on synaptic transmission. Alkalosis has effect opposite to acidosis. So in alkalosis, there is increased excitability of the neuron and there is excitation or increase in synaptic transmission. The increase in synaptic transmission in alkalosis is because of increased in the level of ionized calcium in the ECF. So calcium level is increased, ionized calcium is increased and there is enhancement of the synaptic transmission in alkalosis. Hypoxia, which is a decreased oxygen concentration in the body tissues, decreased supply of oxygen to the body tissues, it decreases the activity of the neuron. Hypoxia suppresses the activity of the neurons and due to suppressed activity of the neurons, there is decrease in the synaptic transmission as a result of hypoxia. So in simple words, we can say that hypoxia decreases the synaptic transmission across the synapses in the nervous system. Then is the effect of drugs. Now drugs can have different effect on the synaptic transmission. There are certain drugs that can enhance the synaptic transmission and there are certain drugs which can block or decrease the synaptic transmission. Now synaptic transmission, it can be blocked by certain drugs by binding with the postsynaptic receptors. So this is the mechanism by which a drug is going to decrease the synaptic transmission, by blocking or binding with the postsynaptic receptors. Anesthetics, general anesthetics, when these are used, they decrease or depress the neuronal excitation by increasing the threshold for excitation. So this is the mechanism of action of anesthetic. By increasing the threshold for excitation, they decrease the excitability of the neurons. Caffeine, theophylline and theobromine all increase the synaptic transmission and neuronal excitability. Again, I am repeating that caffeine, theophylline and theobromine, they increase the neuronal excitability and synaptic transmission, and they do so by decreasing the threshold for excitation. They increase the neuronal excitability and synaptic transmission by decreasing the threshold for excitation. Strychnine causes also an increase in the excitability of neurons, but its mechanism of action is different from these drugs. Strychnine increases the excitability of the neurons by inhibiting the action of the inhibitory neurotransmitter. Strychnine increases the excitability of the neurons by inhibiting the action of the inhibitory neurotransmitter. So when inhibitory neurotransmitter itself is inhibited, then there is excitation, increased excitation of the neurons, and there is increase in synaptic transmission. So these were different characteristics of synaptic transmission and the effects of different factors on the synaptic transmission. I hope you understand the lecture. Thank you for the listening.